Welcome to another episode of JavaScript Interview Question Series. In this series, we solve different JavaScript interview questions, but in no specific order. So you can just start with any questions. So let's get started with our first question. What is hoisting in JavaScript? Yes, this is a very popular interview question. Now, there are two types of hoisting, function hoisting and variable hoisting. We'll start with variable hoisting. So variable hoisting is applicable for var keyword only. It doesn't work with let and const. So suppose you have one variable var myvar equal to something, or just say myvar. After that, if you console.log myvar, what happens? If I execute the code, you can see that it is undefined. Well, that's fine. Now if I remove the declaration of this variable var myvar, okay, then what will happen? If I execute the code now, you can see that there is an error, that is a reference error. My_var is not defined. Now here's the interesting part. If you defined a variable var my_var after the line number 2, that is console log my_var, what should happen? It should throw error, right? Because at this point of time in line number 2 it is not declared, then it should uh, throw some error. So if I execute the code now, you can see that the value is undefined. So what is happening here? In line number 2, myvar is not even declared. So there should be some error message, right? But it is showing undefined. This is happening because of the hoisting. So hoisting means it doesn't matter where you define your variable, it always hoisted up. So in this case, this line myvar, so JavaScript runtime is automatically moving this to line number 1. The variables are hoisted upward. Okay, but you should know that only the declaration is hoisted, not the assignment. Let me clarify. Suppose you have something like myvar equals to 5. Now if I execute this code, you can see the value is undefined. Now if I log the same variable after the definition and execute the code, you can see first it is undefined, then myvar is becoming 5, and then again we're logging 5. Now you can think that, okay, this myvar, if it is hoisted upward like line number 1, then why line number 2 is not printing value 5? Because hoisting happens only for the variable declaration, not the assignment. So you can convert this line into two different statements. One is the value will be hoisted upward, so var myvar, and then secondly in line number 3 it will be myvar equals to 5. So automatically JavaScript runtime will hoist the variable declaration to the first line. Okay, that is the hoisting. Okay, so in this example I have not written any function, so this is just a plain file. So in that case all the variables will be hoisted to the top of the file, that is the first line of the file. But suppose I have a function, inside that let me add some function name my function. Now in this function, suppose I am adding something like var a equals to 5. In that case what happens? And here I have console log a. So in this case the variable declaration is hoisted to the top of the function, that is the first line of the function. So in this case, so it will be like var a, and then line number 6 a equals to 5. This is how it works. So it doesn't matter where you define the variable, in any, it can be anywhere in the function, but the declaration is hoisted upwards and it comes to the first line of the function. And suppose you have something like var b, right? So in this case it is hoisted upwards and it will become a and b here. So that is hoisting in JavaScript. I hope you understood it. Now similar to these variables, if you have any function, suppose you have a function something like this, I'll call it inner function. As you know that function is also a variable, so hoisting happens for function also if you use this function keyword. So in this case also, definition of this inner function moves upward, so it becomes like this: a b comma inner function, and then inner function equals to function. This is how it works. So it doesn't matter where you define the function with the function keyword, the definition always moves upward. Okay, so that is wasting. And remember that if you use let, that is not wasted. Let me show you that example also. Suppose you have something like console log my var. All right, then you define that let my var equals to 7. If I execute this, you will see the error, cannot access my var before initialization. But if you use var here, then the wasting happens and you will not see any error. Now you can see it's undefined, but there's no error. So that is wasting. If you have any question, then please ask in the comment section. I'll try to answer them.
Okay, what is not a number or NaN? This is a very common JavaScript question. And yeah, as a JavaScript developer, you should know this. So what it is, I've already told you what it is. This is not a number. That means it is kind of a number, but it's not a number. So let me open the JavaScript console. This is not a number in N. So this is a value in JavaScript. If you check the type of operator, type of NaN, it is type number. So in JavaScript, suppose you have a number but it cannot be expressed, that becomes not a number. For example, 0 divided by 0, that is not a number in JavaScript. Or math.square root of a negative value, that is -1, that is not a number in JavaScript. So this is definitely a value of type number. 0 divided by 0 becomes not a number. Square root of negative becomes not a number in JavaScript. Now there are certain properties of not a number or NaN type that you should know. So suppose you have a variable where a equals to a not a number, right? 0 divided by 0. So suppose somehow you got this variable a. Now we want to check if a is not a number or not. How will you check that? Can you compare it? If I compare with a equals to NaN, it is false, because not a number or NaN is a special value in JavaScript. See, if I compare NaN with NaN, this is false. Strange, right? So that means not a number, NaN cannot be compared with itself. This is strange, but you should know that. So how will you compare? How will you check if something is not a number? So for that, JavaScript provide isNaN. So this is a function. If you check it, this is a function. This is a native function. And how it works, if I call isNaN, then I pass not a number, it becomes true. That means this is the function to check if something is not a number. So I have already created a variable a, that is NaN. If you check isNaN a, that becomes true. So that means this is the only way to check if something is NaN. So you should know the function is NaN. All right, next question. Null versus undefined. So what is null and what is undefined? You may think that both are kind of same, but no, they're not same, they're different. Suppose I have a variable called my var. Now I'm not assigning any value. I'm just writing my var and then enter. Now if I check the variable my var, you can see the type is undefined. That means if you are not defining anything, if you are not adding any value, any variable or constant will hold undefined value. But it is also possible to set the value undefined. So my var equals to undefined. It is also possible. So if you check my var, it is undefined. Now it is also possible to set the value null. Now if I check my var, the value is null. So if you're not assigning any value in a variable, then it will be undefined. But to set null, you have to explicitly set the value null. So they're not the same. Now what about the types? If you check type of undefined, it will be undefined type. But if you check type of null, this is object type. So their type is also different. Now my var has a value null. Null doesn't mean that it is not a value, it is a value. Okay, my var has a value null. Now if I compare my var equals to undefined, it is false, because my var is not undefined, it is null. So there will be some confusion while writing the code. Suppose my var equals to undefined, right? Now we are coming from some other language like Java or C++. You want to check if my var is null or not. So generally what you will do, you will check my var equals to null, and it is false because my var is undefined. So that is problematic in JavaScript. You should check both null and undefined, or you can check my var double equals to null. In that case it will be true, because both null and undefined will be converted to boolean false. If I convert null to boolean, it will be false. If I convert undefined to boolean, it will be false. So to answer this question, null versus undefined, yes, both are values, both are different values in JavaScript, and both are used to define nothingness, something that is empty. And I showed the comparison between null and undefined. So I hope you'll be able to answer this type of questions. Okay, let's go to the next question. Okay, the question is, what is eval in JavaScript? Eval stands for evaluate. So if you check what is eval, you can see this is a function. This is a native JavaScript function. But what is the use of this? Eval is used to convert a string to JavaScript. What do I mean by that? Suppose you are writing eval and then you are passing a string. In this string, you can write any JavaScript code. You can write console log, anything. Or let me write an expression, 3 plus 4. Now see, this is a plain string. Now if I execute this, you can see it is converting this string to code, and then it is evaluating it. So that is eval. It will convert any string to code and then it will execute it. Now you should be careful when you are writing eval, because there are some security concerns, because it is converting string to code, right? And that is scary. If you are writing the string, then that is fine, but string means you can get the string from anywhere, from any file, from any API call response, from any database call response, from the file system. You can get the string from anywhere and then you can evaluate it, and that is really scary. So you should be very careful. Like whenever you are writing eval, you should be cautious that the string that you're evaluating, that should be coming from some trusted source. So if you get this question in any interview, like what is eval, you should also mention about the security, because if you learn JavaScript from any book or any tutorial, sometimes you will know that eval does that, but you should also know whether you should use it or not. So that is eval. Okay, let's go to the next question. I have 4 expressions and you have to answer each of them, and all are 1 plus 1. What is 1 plus 1? Now you can pause the video and try to answer it. All are just 1 plus 1. Okay, let's write the code and understand. The first one is string 1 plus number 1. That becomes 11. It's not 2. Second one, 1 plus string 1. That is also 11. Third one is definitely 1 plus 1 is 2, because both are numbers. Fourth one is interesting. Plus string 1 plus 1. I have added one extra plus, and that becomes 2. Okay, let me explain. So in JavaScript, if you have this kind of question, you should always check if one side of the plus operator is string, then both should be converted to string. So in the first 2 cases, both will be converted to string 1, and it will concatenate the strings, and the value will become 11, like string 11. Okay. Third one is straightforward. Both are numbers, so no need to compare anything. Just add it. So it will be 2. The fourth one, this is interesting. So whenever you are adding plus operator before any string, it will try to convert it to number. So in this case, the plus, then string 1, it will convert it to 1, and then the second plus will come into picture, and that time it will get one number plus one number, and finally it will become 2. So what did you learn from this? When you're writing code, you should always avoid this kind of confusion, right? In interview, it is fine. You can just, interviewer can be creative and ask this type of question. But when you're coding, you should always avoid this. And you should never mix string and number. because it will be confusing. Alright, that's it for today's video. If you liked it, please hit like, and if you want to support me, please subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.